Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith, and today we're talking with a guy that is close to my heart. We're talking with Shawn Van Dyke, who won the Entrepreneur of the Year award from Keep this year. And he's so near and dear to my heart because he's in the construction business, but it is not the same construction business that I grew up in. I grew up in the construction business when my dad ran a number of teams and they got together at 7 a.m. at the local coffee shop closest to where they were working, handed out assignments for the day, and got after it. He was working in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and the world is so different from then. When my dad was in the game, the factors that made the most impact on whether you succeeded or you failed, there was the general evaluation of opportunities, but then there was also just hard work, that if you could outwork, if you could spend more hours before your body gave out each day, you won. But the world that construction people are working in now is not that same world. And some of the ideas that Shawn's going to share with us today really apply to all business owners and how we can get out of the I'm just going to work more hours mindset and into the I'm going to have better systems mindset. With that, Shawn, welcome to Redbeard Radio.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm thrilled because I was talking with my dad yesterday about construction, and a lot of what he did was when I was very young or before I was born. So I just get told stories about, when I was younger, Dad was working 7 days a week for months on end because he was building 3 houses at a time as a general contractor. And what that meant was he was out of the house for 7 days a week for months on end with 0 rest days. And that's how you won back in the 80s and the 90s, is you just worked harder.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think that there's still a lot of that going on. A lot of the clients that I work with are still trying to break out of that cycle because of the lack of systems, the lack of automation, and the construction industry in general is very slow to adopt new things. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It comes from the fact that when new products come out, or as building science increases and there's new products and things that should be on a house, a lot of builders are saying, no, not me, not on my house, because if there's a problem with it or if there is a warranty issue, then they're the ones that have got to spend the time, the money, and the resources to go fix that. So in general, they've been really slow to adopt new things, which is fine in a certain sense, but also when it bleeds into just the way that business operates today with technology and other things, then they can still end up working that 7 days a week all the time and think, well, if I just work harder, then that's how I get ahead.
Yeah, my dad got a cheat. He married a CPA, and so my mom was a CFO of his construction company. So if Dad was just out there working really hard in the rain, in the cold, building as many houses as possible, and then Mom was managing all the money and the systems to make sure that side of the business continued to make sense, then they won. And they did pretty good because they had these 2 people working, and Dad it was just the more you work, the more money you make. But now we see across the whole world, across all these industries, that mindset, it isn't really accurate anymore. And one of the really interesting things when I got to see you win Entrepreneur of the Year this year at the Keep convention was this idea that you're going to help the people who both have the technical skill of building something beautiful and who have the work ethic of, I will outwork everyone else. I will stay on my feet longer than everyone else. But then you add to that the systems to go make it so that the willingness to outwork everyone else, you don't actually have to go do it anymore to win. And I really want to dive into that. What are these systems that let people who are willing to outwork everyone else and be on their feet more hours than anyone else, more days a week, not have to do that anymore?
Yeah, one of the main things that we focus on at the beginning of any of our coaching programs with our clients is time management. And that's even kind of a misnomer because you can't really manage time. The best way to handle that is to prioritize it. Now, I always say the reason that we go so deep on systems is because I still have yet to find a construction business owner that said, you know what, I want to start this construction business because I want to do a lot of paperwork. They never say that, right? They start and build these businesses because they're really good at building. They're really good at making people happy with they physically go and take something and create it, and that makes them feel great. But as their businesses grow and more people want that thing built, they want that beautiful house, that remodeling project, or whatever that is, then there's only so much time in the day. And contractors, and I mean this as a compliment, they're in general people pleasers. They're most of the ones that I work with, deep down inside, they're very humble. They don't need a lot of accolades. They don't need a lot of applause because they can stand back and look at something and say, yeah, I built that. And they had, as they should, and they take a lot of pride in that. The problem is that we all have the same number of hours in the day. And unfortunately, their best clients and the ones that they're going to make the most money at so that they can run a profitable business, sometimes those clients are ones that you got to say no to. You don't have the budget, or you've got the budget, but you're really difficult to work with. And they don't like to say no because they built most of their businesses by saying yes. And I can figure this out. Nobody taught me. I'm sure your dad was probably the same way. Nobody taught me. I figured it out. So I can apply that to my business. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. Meaning you can figure it out, but you have to create time to do the business side of it because it is different than the building side of it.
Well, that's the problem for all of us. That's such a common cliche, but it's true. The whole working in your business versus working on your business. I'm pretty sure that when my dad was working 7-day weeks for months at a time, he was not working on his business. He was managing his crews while trying to also manage the paperwork of all the permits and the fixing septic problems and just dealing with all of these small problems that show up, even on one project, but he has 3 projects at a time. So there's just to sustain. I think he was doing. I think it took him a month and a half to get a house built back then.
Yeah, that would depending on what it was. Yeah, that could be a pretty quick turnaround time.
Well, he calls it a 39.9 house because at the time there was a very standard model. $39,900 is what he sold it for. It was probably a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. I don't know for sure. And he just had this very specific thing he got really fast at. So his advantage came from he's using the same model for everything. He's doing the research to buy properties that have oddities around them so none of the normal builders want them. And then he's moving really, really fast. And that was his system that helped him win. But that's very specific to the place he's in, the competition he's in. I'd love to hear more about your system that you can apply to people who are like my dad, who that's their angle, versus people who are custom home builders for high-end homes or whatever people are building. Tell us more about what the Shawn Van Dyke system is like.
Yeah. So like I said before, we start with time management or time prioritization really is what it is saying like, all right, you only have so many hours in the day. We all have the same number of time, the same number of hours in a day. So you have to prioritize those things. And a lot of people default to, again, this is business owners in general, default to, making a to-do list. And there's scientific studies that show that to-do lists just don't work because what a to-do list really is just a random list of tasks that you think may need to get done. But if you've ever made a to-do list, there's a reason why they continue to grow over time because they're filled with just random tasks. So our brain scans a to-do list, and because our brains are lazy and they want to conserve energy, we always have a tendency to gravitate towards the simple and the easy thing. Well, the simple and easy stuff that's not the stuff that has the most impact or grows your business. It's the hard, difficult things that have multiple steps. It's those things, if you get them accomplished or when you get them done, that move your business and your life forward. So we start off everybody by saying you have to prioritize your time, especially as the business owner. Everybody's wearing 17 different hats. Great. We have to identify the 5, 6, 10 hats that you just shouldn't be doing or that you should hire somebody to do. And then someone will say, well, yeah, we can't hire anybody. Yeah, that's certainly a struggle right now, especially in the construction industry. We have, there's a huge problem with trying to find skilled labor and other things, but people will stop there and say, well, we can't hire anybody. That still doesn't mean that you can't prioritize your time. So that's what we start off with is prioritizing your time. That's the only way. That's step number 1. That's one of our foundational systems. Then we say, okay, now that you have your time, your task prioritized, then we got to move on to the way that you sell. And for construction business owners, this is very specific. A lot of people, most of the general public thinks that contractors, especially residential contractors, are supposed to work for free. meaning you're supposed to meet with them. You say, hey, I want you to build me a house. Tell me how much it's going to cost. And then the contractor runs around and does all this estimating and talks to subcontractors and talks to vendors and material suppliers and puts all of these numbers together to come back to the homeowner and say, okay, here's how much it's going to cost. It's like in your dad's example, is, he had a system in place, it's 40 grand, or these days, $400,000, $1 million, whatever it is, right? And then they say, oh, yeah, okay, we'll think about it. And these contractors are wasting all of this time doing professional services. So what we teach our clients is you give them an estimate over the phone based on the information that you have, and then you sign them up to do professional services, meaning we're going to price and plan out the things that you want. And we're going to charge you for that because it's just like any other profession. It's a professional service. But the industry right now and society in general say, oh, contractors are supposed to work for free. And a lot of them do. And that's the problem. That's why they end up working 7 days a week, because they spend half of their week running around giving away free work instead of having a sales process that pre-qualifies and filters out all of those people that want free work. I mean, if you call me up and say, hey, here's the project that I want, and you can describe it to me, I can give you an estimated budget range. I don't need to look at your plans. I don't need to look at anything if this is my area of expertise.
Yeah.
And you as the owner or as the customer can say, yes, that's what I'm planning on spending, but no one ever does, right? Because they're always surprised when a professional says, yeah, that project is going to be, I don't know, let's say just a remodeling project. That project's going to be $100,000. Are you going to spend that? The homeowner's going to be like, oh my gosh, no, I looked at some stuff on the internet and I thought it was only going to be $30,000. So they clam up, right? That's the second part, is like selling your professional services to customers and get them to pay you to do all of the planning and estimating. That's kind of like step number 2, very foundational, because that's where your business starts, is in sales.
What's really interesting there is you're building a level of trust where you're saying, yeah, you can go with some Yahoo who doesn't value their time and will just do all this work for you for free. Or you can hire me for however much, and I'll give you an actually specific professional estimate. And that implies a level of skill. I tell you, I was going to go build a shed. Let's see, this was a year ago. And I priced it all out, and I thought I'll just go do it myself because I work on houses, and that's one of the things that I do. I'm not anywhere close to professional grade, but I'm perfectly fine for building a shed. And I priced things out, and I bought the materials. And you know what happens next is I got some posts in the ground. I had everything mapped out how I wanted it. And then at every time where I had time to either work on my business or work on building the shed, I always chose to work on my business, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, after too many months, it was still sitting there with some 4x4s in the ground. And I ended up hiring some guys who are working on building a fence for a neighbor. And I'm thinking, I just want to get this thing done, man. And so I worked with these guys, and, they were cheap comparatively. And I was like, it's more than doing it myself, but it's not too much more. And partway through building this shed, they'd put these windows in an odd way. And I thought, well, that doesn't seem right. But then again, this is what they do. Of course, no, they build fences, but whatever. I'm lying to myself at this point.
Yeah.
What they do, it'll be fine. And the thing finally gets done, and they're substantially charging me more than they promised they would. It's like, well, this is like the kid of the neighbor's cousin, whatever. Yeah. And the end result, it's okay. It's okay. It's not as good as if I did it myself. And would it be valuable over the lifetime of that shed existing to have spent another couple thousand to get a professional or by prefab, either way? The answer is probably yes. But at the time, I thought I was saving time and money by going the cheap route that was easily available. So this idea that you're charging people a professional price up front, as soon as you get past that first conversation, that just really speaks to me as someone who has not always done that and has lived to regret it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any other profession. I always tell our clients, it's like, all right, just imagine that you were sick. What I'm saying is like they're hesitant because they think that they're supposed to give. If I don't give away all of this time and my energy and my expertise, then I won't get any work. And I'll say, like, you just got to think about yourself as a professional. So what if you get sick? Imagine this: you call up the doctor. And imagine having this conversation with a doctor who's a professional. First of all, you're going to say, hey, doc, I'm not feeling good. So here's what I propose you do. I'd like you to come out to my house, if you can, Saturday morning before I take the kids to soccer, and I want you to come out and bring all of your equipment and all of your tools, and I want you to draw my blood. Then I want you to take my blood back to your office in your lab, and I want you to run some tests. I want you to figure out what's wrong with me, and I want you to write me a prescription for that. Then when you get that prescription, I want you to bring it back to my house, tell me what's wrong with me, tell me how to fix it, and how much it's going to cost for the drugs or the treatment. Then I will decide if I want to pay you or not.
That's and how long it's going to take. Exactly how long it's going to take.
And all the other things that come. No one would do that. Why? Because the doctor's a professional. You call them up and you don't even get to like say, I mean, some doctors make house calls, but when you call up, you're not even going to talk to the doctor. You're going to talk to somebody in the office, and they're going to make an appointment, and you're going to go down when it's convenient for that doctor to see you on his or her schedule. And we all do that, right? Because we're dealing with a professional. When contractors do the same thing, because they are professionals, when they see themselves like that and they say, oh no, I've got kids and we've got a soccer game on Saturday too. But if you'd like, we can meet you on Monday morning at 8:00 or 8:30 or any, during office hour times, then yes, it's going to weed out, no offense, Brian, it's going to weed out the guys that are building sheds that think they could do it if they just had more time. No offense, right? You're not going to make money. You're not going to make enough money on those people anyway. So you say no to them. Yeah. And the ones that show up on the appointment, they have the information and they're willing to pay you. They say, I value you as a professional. Please do what it is that you're trained to do and you know how to do. And we all spend money. We all spend money in that way when people sell us their value.
You got me thinking about this house I need to build. I have a lot that I want to build a new house on. And I'm thinking, on the one hand, I could do it all myself. I have the skill set. I have my dad who can still help me out. I could do it, Shawn, myself. I could do it on the weekends when I'm not working on my business. And there's this part of me that says, oh, that's sweat equity, man. That's how I can really get ahead. And then I also think, well, but how much faster, given my shed experience, I have the fantasy of, I have all this time on the weekends or the evenings, right? Where the reality is, if I hired professionals, just took out a loan on the property to go build the thing, it would probably still take way longer than I want it to take. But it'd probably be, I don't know, a year or 5 faster than doing it myself.
Well, and then
professional thing you're talking about.
If you multiply all of your time, let's take that same amount of time and plug it into working on your business. How much more money can you take? And I always tell our clients, you're gonna come up against people that are saying, oh wow, it costs that much. That's a lot. I could do it myself and do it a lot cheaper. I always tell the response to that is like, oh yeah, by the way, just so that we're clear, a professional contractor, we cannot compete against homeowners who have some tools and have endless amounts of time and who don't value their time. If that's what you're absolutely right. You could do it for less money, but how much longer is going to take you and the stress that's involved. If you want to do all of that, oh gosh, by no means is the price that I'm giving you. But see, the price that I'm giving you, that means we're getting it done in 3 weeks, 3 months, 12 months, whatever it is. You want to do it yourself and quote unquote save some money. Oh yeah, we don't compete against that. You're absolutely right. Good luck to you. Enjoy the next year to 2 years. And because if you don't value your time, I certainly can't make you value your time. But if you value what we provide and the time frame that we do it, then go work on your business or go just enjoy your life. But don't compete against homeowners with tools and we call them amateur experts. You'll never win in that.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I talk to people sometimes, and I price my services at the high end of the overall range of the kind of thing that I do for business consulting. And sometimes I talk to folks who say, well, I want what you offer, but I want it cheaper. I say, great, go to Upwork. You will absolutely find cheaper people than me 100%. The people are more expensive than me. You can't even hire. You can only hire their agencies, but you don't get to work with them.
That's right.
There we go. I'm $500 an hour. There exists some people that charge $1,000 an hour, but mostly you're talking $10,000 plus a month to even maybe get to talk to them because you're hiring their agencies. So yes, go to Upwork. If you can stomach Upwork, please go to Upwork and get yourself a more affordable answer to your problems. only talk to me for $500 an hour. If you have a problem, that the answer to this problem is going to make you $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, because I want you to see a high ROI. And as you're talking, Shawn, I'm thinking, yeah, with this next house I have to build, there's a very specific, here's how much I can make on the rent once the house is done. So even assuming I could get it done myself without hiring too many other contractors, let's say it could get done, 3 months if it's professionals, 1 year if it's me. Well, what's 9 months of rent coming in the door?
Yeah, exactly.
Plus all of my psychic energy that's spent not completely focused on Redbeard Consulting.
That's
when you
right.
look at that, it's like, well, it's actually a steal of a deal to hire someone to just get it done and just get it moving.
Yeah, we're building a house right now, a custom house, and people are like, "Oh, well, are you doing some of the work yourself?" Because I used to be a contractor and own a construction business, and I just laugh. I'm like, "No, I need to make money to pay for the house. I do that by doing what I do, not by swinging a hammer anymore." Now, don't get me wrong; there will be little projects on there that I'll probably take on outside of the contractor's work, but I am not doing any of. I'm working on my business so that I can pay for this house, so that I don't have to do anything. And I've done it before, where I've remodeled my own house and built other houses and done the whole sweat equity thing. It's just once you've lived long enough, you're like, yeah, I've done that. I don't need to do it again.
Yeah, I have an insulation project on one of my houses where I know that what needs to happen is someone needs to crawl into this house and tear out a bunch of insulation and put new insulation in that's properly tacked up. And I could do it. I've been thinking about doing it for a year. And I know the right answer is don't do it. It's a 1-day project. I know it is, Shawn. I know it is. Of course, I could be wrong. It could be a 5-day project. But I know it's a 1-day project. And I know I could do it. I have the tools. I have the truck. But I know the right answer is, put the hammer down, or put the nail or the staple gun down and resist this urge, because it's a false savings, right?
Oh yeah. Now in that situation, I get some hungry college kids and say, "Hey, I'll pay you $8 an hour and all the beer and pizza you can eat. You'll come out ahead way on that."
Well, but it's also quality. It's a quality thing, right? That I already have a person recommended by my realtor who gives me good recommendations. And the difference between the hungry college kids versus the serious professional who's recommended by the community, I bet it's a 2 or 3 times price difference. However, what's the third?
Yeah, but I'm saying that, as far as just tearing the stuff out, the unskilled part of that's what I'm saying is like, yeah, let's just, you can find some desperate college kids that want some beer money to get the, tearing it out, and then, the putting back, or the technical part. Yeah, that's what you would hire out.
Well, and that gets interesting about making those kind of judgments. Where should you go as fast as possible for cheap, and where should you spend as much as you possibly can? My wife's had a tire on her car just blow out, or just have a serious puncture, couldn't be repaired. And so I'm looking at replacing the tires, and I think, okay, well, the very cheapest is this, and the most expensive, safest is that. What's the right answer? And I looked at, okay, well, there's a warranty that's going to last about 4 years. It's actually only $100 a year difference per year. And so while I try to spend as little money as possible to get a result, I went and bought the most expensive option, because it's only $8 a month more to have the safest option versus the cheapest option. Is my wife's safety worth that? Yes, it is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not about the technical aspects of it. Like you said it right there, is selling value has much more to do about emotions, right? I'm not going to say, well, my wife's safety isn't worth $8 a month more, or whatever, right? And so you can justify that. And that's how we all make buying decisions, is we make the buying decision emotionally. And then after we've already done that, then we go back out and find the logic to support it. Mm-hmm. And that's why, I tell contractors when they're saying, well, no one charges this much. I'm like, great. Be the highest price person in your market, because having a premium price gives you all sorts of options to do things, and it makes you stand out. Not only so you can say, yeah, we know we're the most expensive, or we're in that upper tier, but look at what you get for that. Now, you can't just have the highest price and then not have the experience and nurturing that goes along with it. But a lot of contractors, and I think probably a lot of business owners, are worried about being more expensive, but being in that upper tier gets you invited into other conversations. Well, if I pay this price, what all do I get? I'm glad you asked. Let me talk about, we're not talking about the features or the technical aspects of it. You start talking about the emotional aspects
Yeah.
of safety and
Yeah.
quality and turnaround time and all of those things. That's what people actually want. I always at least look at the most expensive option, and it's not, I'm looking at it for what experience do I get on the backside of this? And for me, a lot of times that is the deciding factor.
Yeah, making me think about my high level offering, which is your outsourced chief operating officer. And the way I phrase it is, when you hire me at the COO level, A, you're getting me, but B, now I'm waking up in the middle of the night thinking about your problems instead of you waking up in the middle of the night thinking about your problems. And there's a
That's
bunch of
right.
detailed stuff. Like, there's a bunch of benefits around that. Like, you're like, oh, I'm going to go make your Keep application work good, or I'm going to go write copy for you. Like, and there's very few people who can do both these things. But fundamentally, it is, I'm worrying about what's coming next, so you don't have to.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, like you were saying, like the access to you, the
Yeah.
different level, that's what you're paying for.
Yeah. And if you don't need someone with my talent level, then please find someone on Upwork who's a project manager who can work for $1,000 a month. And they might be completely sufficient for you. And if they are sufficient, then please hire them, because I want to see you get that ROI.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit more about the specifics of how someone listening to this who's in the contracting field, or maybe they have a friend or a family member who is, and they're like, man, my friend or family member, like, they're just working their butt off and they're not making the results they should. What does the process look like for a contractor to go get involved with your consulting?
Yeah, so they can go to a couple of different places. They can go to ShawnVanDyke.com, and that's SHAWN. That's the way I spell Shawn, ShawnVanDyke.com, and they can learn about our programs in what we call the Built to Build Academy. And we talked about those earlier. One of our these are foundational systems at time management and our sales process, where you get paid to do estimates. That sounds really weird to anybody that might be listening out there. They're like, oh my gosh, I thought you're supposed to give away free estimates. That's our sales process. We call it paid for planning. But then also I wrote a book called Profit First for Contractors. And that is the key for the financial system. Most contractors are not profitable. They don't understand the difference between margin and markup. They're not paying their taxes on time, and they're not paying themselves. And so the Profit First for Contractors system is a very simple, when I say simple, it is super simple to get set up, and it makes your construction business permanently profitable. It's a cash flow system that contractors, they go set up a few bank accounts, they put certain percentages of every dollar that come in into those bank accounts, and it reveals exactly where the money is in their business and where it's going. And then once they have that foundational financial cash flow management system for Profit First for Contractors set up, then the world opens up to them. Then they finally see where the money's going and where it's being spent, and they're like, oh, now I can see I need to hire some people. We need to work on our estimating. Scheduling is a problem. So all of those, after you get past our foundational systems of, as we say, time, sales, and cash, then we work with contractors and take a deep dive into, again, I see it all the time, and I'm sure you see it in your consulting. There's some basic fundamental things that you got to put in place before you can solve other problems. Now, the business owner thinks, oh, no, that's not my problem. But that's part of our job, is to say, no. The problem that this thing over here is because you skipped a foundational part or a basic systems part. So we get time, we get sales, we get cash in place. Then we work on hiring, estimating, scheduling, and then this is where like the keep part comes in, and the automation, as we teach contractors how to automate their customer journey, and that's something that contractors still are very unaware of. It's like, hey, you don't, every time someone signs a contract with you, you don't have to call them on the phone and tell them when you're going to start or what the next step is. Like, you can program a computer to do all of that, and it can be very engaging, it can be very nurturing. But a lot of contractors, they just are not using the power of text messaging combined with videos, combined with an onboarding process that can be automated. And so that's what's been really exciting for us, is to be able to teach contractors, first of all, that system on how to do that, and then show them the actual tools that exist out there that make it super simple. That was like what I was saying at the very beginning. Right? They're very hesitant to adapt new technologies. And that was one thing that one of the silver linings that came out of the pandemic is I've been coaching contractors all across the world on Zoom for years. And they were like, how's this coaching thing work? I'm like, yeah, we just jump on a Zoom call. It's a virtual conference call. And now it's like now it's standard. So that was one of the things is that contractors are seeing this technology, how it streamlines communication with customers. And but they're still not aware of the automation part that can be implemented in their business. And that's really exciting.
What you're doing is revealing what people are actually good at and what they're actually getting paid for. I think about my dad who did business largely on a handshake. And yes, there's contracts and all that, but it's a handshake era. And that's still the culture for a lot of contractors. And you're revealing that actually your ability to send a text message is not what you're getting paid for. And once you look at that and you realize, well, okay, well, if I have that automated, what am I actually being paid for? And that forces people sometimes uncomfortably to look at, well, of everything I'm doing, what's the 20% that I'm getting paid for? That's hard to replicate, that I'm actually competing on. But that's what's required to actually grow your business, is to understand what is it. Like in my case, it's the understanding of systems plus the copywriting, plus the growing up in a 2-business owner family. That's what I do. The minutia of this or that or building a campaign or whatever, that's not what I'm doing. That is Upwork. Upwork can compete with me there. But the copywriting plus the systems thing, that is very rare.
Yeah.
So I love that you're helping people just focus on what are you actually competing on. That's beautiful. Shawn, where can folks find you on social media?
Yeah, so social media, I'm mostly very, very active on Instagram. And so they can just go Shawn Van Dyke at Instagram. Again, that's ShawnVandyke. You can, hopefully you just put me into Google and you'll find LinkedIn, our YouTube channel, all of the other stuff there. But if you want to connect with me, you can go to ShawnVanDyke.com or just send me a message or follow me on Instagram.
Wonderful. Shawn, thank you for being on Redbeard Radio.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me and look forward to meeting with you again.